But now it is time for the trick or treat match. It's no DQ. If Abadon wins, she gets a championship match in the future. So a table is brought out early on by Rebel and Hayter, which would prove to be the table of all tables that they would have to compete with later tonight. Abadon fights off the two after being placed on the table. Baker hits a swinging neck breaker off the apron to Abadon. Dude, the table does not break. I don't know how this thing survived. These two bodies crashing on top of it. Two people at once, and they did not break this table. So instead, Baker recovers and goes for a vertical suplex. The table is 2-0.
Yeah. It's table
the
one.
Table might get the title shot.
The table should get the belt already. Wow.
But then, after all of this, Abadon does the sit-up, and this place just pops for it. Like, they were into Abadon here, who she plays this so tremendous. She dumps thumbtacks in the ring, and then the announcers instantly say that Baker is having flashbacks to the Lights Out match. And I thought that was so awesome, which was added upon because this week Adnan Virk did a pretty open interview about his time at Raw and just, not being ready, essentially. And one of the things he noted was that when it comes to the history and such, you don't have to reference anything beyond what happened last week. It's like, once that's over, it doesn't exist. It's last week and it's next week. And that's pretty much verbatim, or I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he said. And it's when you have that kind of mindset, you miss out on so much story that you can tell. Just this idea of Britt Baker going back to this match that puts even more emphasis on this huge match. So it didn't just happen one week and we forget it the next. It's that will live on for Britt Baker whenever she has some violent match again that we can go back and trace, certain spots to and why she would be so frightened by these thumbtacks beyond just what's happening in the moment.
It also builds the legend of that match by reminding your audience what a significant event it was in the lives of the competitors and in the history of AEW. I mean, it really was. It's a match I think we all remember. I mean, many people consider it to be the best women's match in AEW history, one of the best main events in Dynamite history. And it's a feud that they're certainly going to go back to. So,
and probably sooner than later, because I think it's conditioning you to, Thunder Rosa. If you forgot, they're reminding you now. So, whenever they decide to pull the trigger on that, it's smart to drop that reference in every now and then and link those two together. So the tacks are out, and dude, Britt Baker takes a Uranagi onto the tacks.
Crazy. I thought it would be Abadon taking it. At this point, I'm like, man, Britt Baker's enough of a star. She's a dentist during the daytime. I'm like, and this is Rampage. This is 10:30, 10:45 on a Friday. I mean, what are these two doing taking thumbtacks at 10:45 on a Friday? But she took it. So, man, she is crazy.
And think about this. She thought she was going head to head with Talking Smack at this point.
Yeah, you're right.
When this match was taped.
Yeah, you're right.
She takes the tack spot, but then she comes back. She rams the chair into Abadon, puts her neck through it, and stomps Abadon, who just gets up from the neck snap. Baker puts on the glove, hits a super kick, tacks into Abadon's mouth for another super kick, but she goes for the lockjaw, but doesn't want to put her hand in the mouth. And they've got this close-up of her mouth, and it's got all the red shit, the tacks. And so Abadon then bites her fingers. Hayter comes in and attacks Abadon, Rebel's on the apron, and then Baker scores with a roll-up in 11 minutes and 15 seconds. And this was very much the idea that Baker survived this woman.
Yeah. Which
is kind of the story you want to tell when you do a big Abadon match, which honestly, they might only do 2 or 3, maybe only 2 Abadon significant matches a year. That's all you need. You don't need it to be all over the show and dominate the women's division, but it's a character you can go to and play this card every now and then.
It's an incredibly valuable character. A lot of people might be suggesting Bray Wyatt, bringing it, when's he coming to AEW? They have the Fiend. They have the Fiend in Abadon, and I certainly hope that they continue to treat her with the amount of importance in matches like these, making her legitimately scary and making her a special attraction that is not overused overexposed. She was fantastic in this. I thought she was great. You know, in the past, like I don't know if I've seen her in like, you know, great maybe in-ring performances. And not to say this was like amazing technical wrestling. It was not. But as a fun theatrical experience in a hardcore match, it absolutely delivered. There was probably a great deal of pressure on these two to deliver on a main event when you're already preceded by Bryan Danielson versus Eddie Kingston and that amazing Dante Martin Matt Sydal match. This justified itself for being in a main event role. They took adequate risk and they delivered. And the intensity in the rush to the finish, I thought was very great. Was very very high. But Abadon has like, you know, doing like the Undertaker no sell thing. You can only get away with like so many people and you know, somebody doing it so many times. But I'm really glad that Abadon is one of those people who's given that spot, because the close-ups on her face, every shot of her looks like a horror movie poster. Like she is a walking, living horror movie character. And there's just something so incredibly magical about seeing her on screen. And again, you know, I hope they continue to keep that freshness, making her a special attraction, appearing only from time to time, but, you know, impactful every single time.
It is like, and this was a huge strength of the Fiend character in WWE, is that it's a tremendous character for licensing purposes. Like this character as an action figure for a future video game, like there's a great value. And the Fiend character sold a ton of merchandise. Like there's absolutely like a monetary reason to have one character like this that is very different, that you can do things with. I think it's finding the right place in the show that it can fit and not overdoing it either. But I love this episode of Rampage. I really thought this was a really fun episode, and not as much for SmackDown.
Everything was worth watching on this show. Just strictly in terms of in-ring quality, I thought everything felt of a pay-per-view quality on this 1 hour show. It was a very good 1 hour show.